Are we ready? Are we ready? You guys have been so socially programmed. Whenever someone says, "Are we ready?" then you respond by cheering, right? It's great. Okay, so, class of 2024, congratulations! You guys did it. You made it. You succeeded. Good job. Okay, so, I thought, did you guys think that the earlier speakers, the students, as well as Dr. Glazer and Dr. Rowley, I thought they did a really good job this evening. And so maybe I don't have to do very much. I think they've already kind of done it for me. So I was trying to think of what to do. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Marcus and Katie, and I was talking about what to do, and I was like, hey, maybe should I just say stuff that gives people a warm, fuzzy feeling, and they can just feel good about themselves, and then you go to graduate? And they said no. They said, no, they wanted something that was deep and thought-provoking. And then Katie specifically said that it was okay to offend people. So I figured I'd give it a try. So if you're offended tonight, you know who to blame. They're sitting right over there. Okay, so here goes. I was thinking about what we just said. I just said that you guys made it, you succeeded. But everyone here knows people who aren't here with us tonight, who started at IMSA, but for one reason or another aren't here tonight, aren't graduating from IMSA. So tell me, are those people failures? Oh, you guys say no. Wait, that's too cheap. Think about it. You can't just say everyone's successful. That's not success, right? Success only has meaning if there is a possibility of failure. I'm okay with saying everyone has the potential to succeed, but if you say everyone is successful, no matter what they do, then success is meaningless, right? That's like saying everyone is special. That's not what special means, guys, right? Like Dash says in The Incredibles, that's the same as saying no one is. So you can't just say, oh, they're all successful. But maybe it's worth thinking, if you don't think they're failures, then are you necessarily successes? In which case, you have to really wonder, what does success mean? And if you want to talk about what success means, maybe it's better to talk about the opposite of success. So tonight, I want to talk to you about failure. So a lot of you are like, oh, I know how this one goes. This is that talk. It's about, oh yeah, how we got to fail forward, right? You got to if no one ever tries to fail, they just fail to try. Oh, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And that story about Thomas Edison, do you know that one's not true? You guys, do you know the story? Thomas Edison tried it 10,000 times to invent the light bulb. It's not true. He did once say that he tried 9,000 different tries to invent a storage battery. But he also kind of exaggerated sometimes. I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, sorry. So you're thinking, oh yeah, we always talk about this. Everyone says you shouldn't be afraid of failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success and things like that, right? The problem is, I have nothing against that attitude. It's good if you're working on an invention, if you're on a physics problem set or programming something. Great, by all means, keep trying on it. But that's not really failure. Look, if you're trying to invent a light bulb and the light bulb doesn't work, that's not a failure. That just means you haven't figured it out yet. Right? Look, if you're on a math test and you forget the minus sign so you get the answer wrong, that's not a failure. You just messed up and got the answer wrong. I want to talk about actual failure. Look, failure isn't getting a C in calculus at IMSA. Failure is getting kicked out of IMSA for dealing drugs. That's a failure. I'm sorry if that touched a nerve for anyone. And failure isn't when you are turning a corner too fast and you smack into someone and knock them down. That's just a mistake. Failure is when you lose temper with someone you care about and you hit them. That's a failure. Okay? So when people say, oh yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of failure, actually I think they're not honest about it. Actually, as a society, we are terrified of failure, and we try not to talk about it. So here we go, thought-provoking and offensive, right? So here we go, we're going to talk about failure tonight. Why do I say these other things aren't failure? What is it that makes something failure? I would distinguish it in a few ways. First of all, failure, to count as failure, has to be your fault. Look, if someone else rear ends you, you don't say, oh no, I have failed, right? If you go and get COVID, you don't say, wow, what a failure, right? It's just one of those things that happens. And similarly, if you've worked really hard but Northwestern rejects you, that's not your failure. You had very little control over that. In fact, it's their failure for not being smart enough to accept you. So that's not what we call failure. It has to be something that you did consciously to call it a failure. That I think is the first criterion. Second criterion for failure is that it has to be something that is not fixable, or at least not easily. It's not like when you take a test. These days, I feel like you take a test, you always have a retake you can take after that, right? So it's like, oh, I did badly in this one. All right, we've always got the retake. But then it's not really a failure, right? Because you've got another chance to do it. But there's a lot of things in life that don't work that way. That you can't just fix over and make it like it never was, like it is in the grade book. And don't get the wrong idea, I do that too. It's fine. But some things are just like, they're like those emails that I get right around this time of year. The ones that start, Dear Dr. Dong, I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed your class. And whenever it starts that way, I just skim past the next 3 paragraphs to get to the punchline, which is, I was wondering if you could give me an A. The answer is no. You know, you guys call it rounding, right? It's quite a euphemism. Rounding, you know, one person asked me if I could round him to an A. I went and looked at his grade, it was an 85%. I've got to talk to your math teacher about that one. I don't know what system of math 85 rounds to an A. Or like rounding to the nearest multiple of 90 or something. But you send these emails because you're like, wait, they say things like, please, I'll do extra work if there's anything else I can do. And the answer is no. No, that ship has sailed. You've got your B, live with it. But there's a lot of things that are worse in life than getting a B. And a lot of them you can't go back and fix. You may not have intended what your actions to hurt someone, but once they've hurt someone, they can't be unhurt. And once you say things, they can't be unsaid. Once you've done things, they can't be undone. And in those cases where you realize the finality of the things you have done, that is part of what constitutes a failure. And finally, I think what makes something a failure, okay, I'm not sure this is what makes something a failure, but something about failure is that everyone does it. We, I think, have this idea that society is made up of good people and bad people. And the bad people are the ones we see in the newspaper and we point our fingers at them. Ooh, Harvey Weinstein, he's a bad person. Oh, Adolf Hitler, he's a bad person. The rest of us, we are good people. And in doing so, we try and pass by the fact that we never do anything really bad. Sad fact is, it's not true. We all fail. Not little failures, big failures, really bad things that we shouldn't have done. And a lot of us, society at large, try to cover that up, try not to talk about it. But the simple fact is, we all do it. You know, a lot of you may say, oh, Dr. Dong, he's a teacher, he's been teaching a long time, he knows how to do it. Well, maybe I do know how to do it sometimes, but I can also think of all the students that I have failed. You know, they say that a teacher can change people's lives. Do you realize that goes both ways? So I also have my students that I have failed, not to mention the failures as a father, as a husband, right? The fact is, this happens to all of us. But we don't like to admit it. That's why what we put up on our Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever you kids use these days, all of those things, you try and portray your life as though you are perfect and you hide up all the things you don't want anyone to see. But you have to deal with it because it happens. You're not avoiding it. Maybe you'll never fail a class, but you will definitely fail at something. And so, there's a question, what do you do about it? I would say the first thing you do about it is you have to admit that you failed. This may be the hardest part. For a lot of people, don't like to admit that they fail. Not even to themselves. You know, we get in this habit of defending ourselves. We do it so naturally. A lot of times we lie when we do it, and we do that pretty naturally too. And you guys, I think, know what I'm talking about. So when you get pulled up, I don't know, for the disciplinary hearing or something, you say things that we kind of both know aren't true, but you still say it, right? And I don't particularly care about that. What I worry more about is that you tell the lies so often that you start to believe them. You start to believe, that's right, I didn't do anything wrong. It was someone else's fault. And somehow you go through life believing that nothing, in 18 years, you've never done anything consequential wrong. It's not true. And as you get older and older, you're going to make bigger and bigger failures that will hurt more people. The first thing to do is to realize that that happened. And I think it would be good. Sometimes people are afraid to say these things, even when there's no one else in the room. They're afraid to say it out loud. I think it would be good for you to say, like, hey, regardless of what I told Dr. White, I actually did try to use ChatGPT to write part of that essay for me because I thought I could get away with it. Sorry if that's a tender point right now. Too soon? All right, got it. So the fact is, with failure, the first part is to admit that it happened. I wish we would do this more often, frankly. I think it would be easier when we do those meetings. You know those terrible meetings that you have? Some of you know what I'm talking about. When you have those meetings where you're sitting down with like all your teachers there, plus your parents, now they're on Zoom, and you go through each teacher at a time, and they tell you all the assignments that you're missing, all the things you're doing wrong, and all the ways you need to shape up right away or you're going to fail. With all those things, it's so like overwhelming. There's like, now you're left with a list of 85 assignments that you haven't done yet. I really wish we could just be honest and say what's going on, which is, yes, I know all the assignments. I know what I have to do. I just don't know how to make myself do it. Maybe it would make it easier if we could just admit that. In fairness, the people in those meetings are not trying to be mean. They're trying to help, and they're actually willing to. Which maybe brings me to the next point about what we can do in the face of failure. We need something from other people. There is a fiction that we can go through everything by just relying on ourselves. I found it to be untrue. We need other things, and I think what we need specifically from other people is something called grace. Grace I'm using in the older sense of the word, not like a dancer, but like in the old, there's a Greek word, charis. It means something that is given that you don't deserve. And so when you've really failed, like in a bad way, you have no right to demand anything. But what you need is someone to give you help anyway. It's called grace. And I found that people who have experienced failure themselves are the ones who are willing to reach out to others to give them the grace that they need to get through their failure. That's the other thing to realize, is that failure doesn't last forever. It's something you get through, but you need to get through it with other people. And so what we need for ourselves and for each other is to have grace when things fail. We have a society that loves to point our fingers at other people and say, oh, they're such bad people, but much less willing to come and sit down and do what is admittedly often very difficult, demanding, frustrating, and disheartening work of the long-term work of working with someone to make them better. And the last thing I think we need when we fail is forgiveness. There's one IMSA alumnus, this is a true story. There's one IMSA alumnus who, after graduating from IMSA, went to like a Walgreens or something, and the person next to him suddenly collapsed. The student was trained as a Boy Scout, but in the moment, he freaked out, had no idea what to do, and actually ran out of the store. Afterwards, he's like, I should have been helping that person. Why did I do that? That's a failure. And yet, it happened. What now? Well, there's no way to go back to that person. It wasn't even near where he lived. He was visiting another place. So it's not like he could find out whatever happened there. And yet still, obviously, something that bothers him. What he's looking for is forgiveness. And forgiveness is something ideally, of course, you would seek from the people you harmed. But sometimes it seems like that's not very practical. A lot of people talk about what you really need is to learn to forgive yourself. I disagree. I don't think it means very much to forgive yourself. Like, I can forgive myself, I can do whatever I want. I don't think that really solves anything. The reason we feel that is not because of ourselves, but because we feel the guilt externally. And so, I would say it's someone else you need forgiveness from, not yourself. You might say, but in some cases, there's no one else to ask. What do you do then? Which is why I believe that the only way you can find forgiveness is in a man named Jesus who died to forgive your sins. Okay, wait, sorry. Is that too much? Am I going too much here? Is this okay? Well, you know what? I understand, right? So this is a graduation, not a funeral, right? You guys want to celebrate. That's fine. Okay, you didn't sign up for a philosophy or theology lecture tonight, right? That's fine. You can go think about it some other time. After all, right now we're celebrating that you finished here at IMSA, your success, if that's what it is, to go on and move on to bigger and better things. Please, before you go though, just allow me to give you my blessing. As you go forth into a hostile world that does not tolerate failure, even though it's in all of us, something we all do. This is an ancient Hebrew blessing. It's thousands of years old. It goes like this. Class of 2024, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Because blessing, grace, peace, that's, math and science are cool too, but I think in the end, that's really what we need to get through our life. And so, as you go out into this world, as very imperfect, flawed people who have spent enough time putting up a veneer of perfection so that other people don't suspect what's actually going on, and living sometimes in terror of what people see if they can see through the cracks in the facade, into a world full of people who try to cover up and distract from their own failures by mocking the failures of others, then I wish that what you would find is the grace that knows no bounds and the forgiveness that you don't deserve to get through your life's failures. And to go from that to share that grace and forgiveness with others. That you can work with someone to make them into better people. And if you do, then, and maybe only then, you will finally be one of those who is advancing the human condition. And you will know what it means to succeed. Congratulations.